Joe Biden takes back Michigan and Wisconsin for the Democrats. The former VP creeping ever closer to the 270 electoral votes he needs to take the presidency. The key states of Nevada, Georgia, and Pennsylvania still in play. President Trump, meanwhile, insisting, without evidence, there were major problems with the voting and counting of millions of mail-in ballots. Republicans filing suits in different states across the country. And here in Europe, like in the U.S., we're struggling to contain a new wave of coronavirus that's now infected more than 11 million across the continent. New stay-at-home orders in place in England and Italy. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jeannie Godula in Paris. Well, let's get straight to our top story there on the latest on the vote counting in the U.S. presidential election. Let's take a look at the numbers we have at the moment. The former VP Joe Biden getting closer to the required 270 electoral college votes after flipping back Michigan and Wisconsin, two states that had gone red for Donald Trump in 2016. The president at the moment with 214 electoral votes. Well, there are still 4 states in play that are all pretty close: Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Nevada, where Joe Biden does look to have a stronger lead. The 6 electoral votes there would get him to 270, but Donald Trump and his backers say they're ready to demand a recount. Shirley Sitbon explains.
Close and tense, the race to the White House moves slowly towards the finish line. After being declared winner in Wisconsin and Michigan, Joe Biden urged his supporters to remain patient.
After a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report that when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
President Donald Trump believes the exact opposite. Earlier in the day, the U.S. president denounced fraud against the nation and said he was the one winning the election. Trump and his supporters say there is a lack of transparency in the counting of mailed-in votes in swing states, Pennsylvania and Georgia, where the president is still ahead. His son Eric Trump confirmed the president's team is taking the matter to court.
They're trying to cheat us out of it because they know it's their only path to victory. They know it's the only path to victory. And so we came here today, we met with all our lawyers. We are going to file suit in Pennsylvania. It's a shame that we have to do that. It's the last thing that we wanted to do. It's the last thing my father wanted to do. But this is rampant corruption, and it can't happen. It simply can't happen. It's not fair. This isn't democracy.
Biden supporters have protested, like here in Philadelphia, against Trump's calls to stop vote counting.
Well, pro-Trump protesters turned out at vote counting centers not just in Pennsylvania, but in Michigan or Arizona, where the vote had already flipped for Joe Biden, even in the reliably blue state of New York. Now, those protests a sign that an ugly post-election battle is not just brewing, but growing. Peter O'Brien explains.
Hours after Fox News and the Associated Press projected Joe Biden would win Arizona, local Republicans still believe it should be Donald Trump's. A crowd of them, many carrying firearms, turned up to a counting office in Maricopa County to show their anger, forcing it to close its doors to the public. Some falsely claimed their votes weren't counted because they were marked in Sharpie pen, which they said the voting machines couldn't read.
Which one of you guys were forced, not asked to, but forced to use a Sharpie?
County officials reminded people that Sharpies are in fact their preferred pen for filling out ballots, and observers from both parties and the public oversee the count. Over in Detroit, Michigan, police intervened to make sure a few dozen people didn't interrupt a vote count there.
We just want to see the vote. We want to see that it's being accurately counted, that nothing's been changed, that the name on it reflects what's in the book.
I see a lot of fraud, and that's why I'm here. So, yeah. And I feel that that's just, it's just unconstitutional. It's not good.
Michigan is one of the various states where Republicans have filed lawsuits over the election. Donald Trump has insisted without evidence that there were major problems with the voting and counting, especially with mail-in ballots.
Philip Turl joins me on the set to talk a bit more about the U.S. presidential election. Philip, we just heard there how Donald Trump is insisting there were these problems with the voting, particularly the early voting, these mail-in votes. What's his issue with those votes?
Right, well, if you think back to what Donald Trump has been saying right from the very start of this election campaign, he's been saying there's going to be the biggest fraud in the history of the United States, and it's going to be because of mail-in voting. There's going to be stuffing in the ballot boxes, and it's all going to go against my re-election. So there's no proof of this, of course, and this is something, the mail-in voting technique has been part of the US election campaign system for decades. So Donald Trump has come up with this idea that anybody who votes via post is going to be committing basically some kind of fraud as far as the election campaign is concerned. And as a result of the fact that he seems to be losing in the polls right now and losing in the electoral vote, this has put this to the forefront to become even more of something that Donald Trump is claiming. So if you actually look a little bit in more detail about where this is all coming from, you can understand why Donald Trump is advocating this. So there are two slides for you. The first one is on Pennsylvania, which is one of the hotly disputed states, one of the swing states. We still don't have a result from there. But if you look at the absentee vote in Pennsylvania, that's the vote through mail-in balloting. 87% of those who mailed in their votes are susceptible to vote for Joe Biden, with only 13% for Donald Trump. If you look at the election day in Pennsylvania, then 39% who went to the polling stations would have voted for Biden and 60% for Trump. That's an estimation that came from ABC and the Washington Post back in September. So that already enthused Donald Trump to predict that there will be more mail-in voting in favour of Biden than in favour of Trump. So therefore, why not try to claim there was going to be electoral fraud to undermine the vote for Joe Biden? Now, in the second slide, if you look at the deadlines to receive mail-in ballots, they're in the 6 closest states won by Donald Trump in 2016. In Arizona, Florida and Wisconsin, those mail-in ballots had to be received by Election Day, the 3rd of November. But in 3 others, Michigan, North Carolina and Pennsylvania, the mail-in ballots had to be received with a stamp saying they had been posted by Election Day, but there was a period after Election Day in which those votes could be taken into account, normally 3 days. So now today we found out that Donald Trump has already started legal proceedings in Michigan and Pennsylvania against that vote count, and has asked in Wisconsin for the vote count to be done again because he feels that he has been diddled out of the votes that he was due in this election campaign. All of this to say basically that I don't accept losing this election, and therefore I'm going to take everything as far as I can to court to try to get back as many votes as I can.
Now, on election night, when Donald Trump spoke, he said that he would take this to the Supreme Court without really giving any basis. Could he even legally do that? Is there a path to that?
The answer to that is no. And even members within his own Republican Party have said, look, just calm down a little bit. We've got to wait for the counting to take place. You can't start accusing people of electoral fraud because we don't even know the outcome of the election. Now, there's also another confusing point here, is that Donald Trump was saying in his speech, where he already claimed an early election victory yesterday, that he wanted the voting to stop. That was confusing because what he actually means is the counting he wants to stop. The voting has stopped. It stopped on Election Day. So he's wanting the voting to stop. He's saying, I'm going to go to court over it. He can't go straight to the Supreme Court. That's got to go through the different states who then have to go to the Supreme Court. They tried in Pennsylvania to stop that vote from taking place over the Election Day. Remember the 3 extra days there are there in Pennsylvania to count those votes with the stamp that they were posted before Election Day. They failed to do that, so that vote count is still going on.
Philip, thank you so much for that. France 24's Philip Turl. All right, let's step away from the U.S. election now and come back to Europe, where, like in the States, we are struggling to contain a new wave of coronavirus. More than 11 million people have now been infected across the bloc. England's 56 million have now joined other nations in the UK in a second coronavirus lockdown. Yuka Roye explains.
Desperate for a pint. This street in central London looked like it was 2019.
as Brits hit pubs in droves before a fresh lockdown.
It's like when you get on the tube and it says, mind the closing doors, and you have to get in.
It kind of feels a little bit like New Year's Eve. It's got that kind of New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve atmosphere in the air.
Earlier in the day, the city's main shopping districts were also crowded with people seeking a bit of last-minute retail therapy. Following Wales and Northern Ireland, England is the latest in a string of European nations to go into lockdown for a second time to try and stem the spread of the virus. Pubs and restaurants, as well as non-essential shops, are being shuttered for a month. People are asked to work from home when possible, while schools remain open.
I don't mind too much because we did a lot of shopping today and hopefully it's only 4 weeks.
Like, obviously it's annoying, you do want to make plans, but that's just the way it goes.
The UK has the highest COVID-19 death toll in Europe at close to 48,000, after nearly 500 new fatalities were recorded on Wednesday. Prime Minister Boris Johnson insisted the lockdown would automatically expire on December the 2nd.
And we will then, I hope very much, be able to get this country going again, to get businesses, to get shops open again in the run-up to Christmas. But that depends on us all doing our bit now.
The Bank of England is expected to inject an extra £100 billion to help businesses cope with the fresh lockdown.
The national lockdown in France could see even more restrictions here in Paris. Those could include a requirement for shops to close in the evening. Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo made that announcement this morning, saying there could be a curfew of 10 p.m. for certain shops selling takeaway food and drink. And the government in Italy has approved new restrictions to tackle the second wave and curb a steady rise in deaths and hospital admissions. Italy has registered 30,550 new coronavirus infections over the past 24 hours. Mario Sofos reports.
With cases of COVID-19 surging in Italy, particularly in the northern region of Lombardy, Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte's government has approved fresh measures to battle the country's epidemic.
There is only one way out of this dramatic period: to stick together all the time.
From Thursday, Italy's 60 million residents will be required to stay at home from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m, except for work or health reasons. The country's 20 regions are being placed into 3 tiers, based on a number of factors, including local infection rates and hospital occupancy. Red zones are high risk, with residents only allowed to leave their homes for work, medical reasons or emergencies. All bars and restaurants and most shops will be closed. Orange zones are medium risk, meaning people can move freely within their own towns and cities, but cannot leave them even to travel to other places in the same region. Again, bars and restaurants will be closed, but shops can stay open. In the low-risk green zones, there are no restrictions besides the nationwide measures. As the catering industry bears the brunt of Italy's partial lockdown, many owners are very worried.
We understand that Lombardy is a high-risk area, but we are still waiting to hear from the government what financial assistance will be given.
On Thursday, the government is expected to approve a new stimulus package of at least €1.5 billion to support the economy. Italy was the first European country to be hit hard by coronavirus and has so far reported almost 760,000 cases and more than 39,400 deaths.
You are watching France 24. Don't go away. I'll be back in about 15 minutes with more of your world news.